Welcome back to the future. Cities as incubators of innovation is the name of our panel. I hope you are in the right hall. I would like to welcome each and every one of you. We will be talking about how cities would be an incubator, or when we look at cities as incubators, how should cities function? We will be talking about innovation or the new smart. How can we develop that? How can we cooperate? And in this ecosystem, how can we talk about a lively and symbiotic influence of one another? How can we make this sustainable so that we can come up with all kinds of novelties, not only in technology or in the form of companies, but as social entrepreneurship or corporate entrepreneurship, intra-organizational entrepreneurship. Then we can talk about those novelties. In the Marmara region, we will be talking about our cities, our region. As you all know, the Marmara region represents 1/3 of the country's economy. That's why you can find anything in this region. All kinds of development is available here in this region. Istanbul is the apple of the eye of the whole world when we look at our history, the dynamic population, and also the innovation or entrepreneurship. We will be talking about lots of novelties. I would like to introduce our panelists to you. Javad Sardar is coming from UK. He's working with the UK government. He conducts projects with the UK government, and he has his own company. He is an expert in smart cities, but he studied chemistry at the university. And then he worked in the United Kingdom and in different regions like Brazil, Nigeria, South Africa. In Turkey, he has projects in Asia Pacific region. Our first speaker will be Javad Sardar, and he will be talking about cities as incubators. He will be talking about cities as incubators by giving some examples, by going into details of certain cities. Our second speaker will be Ms. Aslı Deniz Helvacıoğlu. She is not here yet. She will come with a delay. If she is not here, we will give the floor to our third speaker, Ersin Pamuksüzer. Aslı is a graduate of Boğaziçi University, Research and Development Center for Innovation and Competition Director. So, she has MA and PhD studies in law. First, she started with international relations, then she studied international innovation law, and Boğaziçi University is very important. The Techno Park of Boğaziçi University is crucial. Mr. Ersin is an old friend of mine. When he was at Ericsson, Korea World was the unit responsible for innovation. Entrepreneurs were getting together there, and we used to get together as well, and we were discussing how we can survive Turkey. He studied in Sweden, and then in 2006 he completed his duties at Ericsson, and then he became the founder of the Lifeco in Antalya and in Phuket, in Thailand. He has his offices, and with Başakşehir, the living lab experience is quite important. It's an international experience with municipalities. They are working and they are creating incubators, and he will be talking about their own experience, reasons for success, for failure, rooms for improvement, etc. Mr. Shadi Yazıcı, the mayor of Tuzla municipality, one of the districts of Istanbul. We're coming from the same hometown, and he's quite young, but we're both from Erzurum. We have discovered this. He is a medical doctor, and we are trying to position the Atatürk University. He is a graduate of the Atatürk University. For 7 years, he worked as the district mayor, and he is quite into the smart cities concept. And he is the last speaker on purpose, because he will be talking about what he has achieved and what is yet to be achieved. My name is Oğuz Barburoğlu. I would like to introduce myself as well. At the Sabancı University, I have a department, and I have become the head of this department recently, and the department has the name of my research center, because the trustee delegation said that I was into the innovation. That's why at the academia we should see the reflections. Let's start a PhD program so that you can pave the way for the future, for youngsters as well. And the name of this department is Arama Research. So in the academia, while after giving lots of money, companies can achieve to give their name, but we are a quite small organization. That's why we are honored by this title. So the innovation and innovation processes at the Sabancı University in the last 8 years, we are among the universities which are quite innovative. So for 5 years we ranked the first and the second and then the third. So we are quite assertive, and I would like to give the floor to Mr. Javad Sardar. Can I just say your name instead of saying Mr. or Miss? Can I directly say Javad? Javad, the floor is yours. And I hope we could spend time together after presentations. I will make a question, and then after getting an answer, I will open the floor for your questions.
What are you looking for?
The clicker.
The clicker?
Yeah.
Where is the clicker? Bir şey, slide'ları oradan uzaktan. Maybe you want to say something.
Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for attending this session. Thank you for the organisers for inviting me out to speak today. And thank you, Ogos, for the wonderful introduction. Just to add a bit on that, whilst we find the clicker. My name is Jawad Sardar. I run a consultancy called SUM Global, short for Smart Urban Management. What we do is we provide consultancy services to both public and private organisations working in the smart city sector. I'm currently delivering a contract for UK government, overseeing the Prosperity Fund Global Future Cities programme. In the plenary session this morning, the video message sent by Maimouna Sharif, the Executive Director from UN Habitat, gave a a rough background onto what the Global Future Cities Programme is doing. And today I'll be speaking or giving you a slight introduction into what UK cities are doing in order to help foster innovation and to be able to bring innovation to their cities to alleviate the problems that cities are facing across the world now. As we all know and have heard quite considerably, the discussion and debate around cities have been ongoing for a number of years now, led by UN Habitat and their fantastic work. We've all heard the statistics around the urban-rural migration and how over 70% of inhabitants will be living in urban centres and cities by 2050. And this is a quote that I absolutely love by a former mayor of Denver about how cities and their role within nations is changing and constantly changing, and how in the 21st century cities are being seen as nations in terms of the magnitude of problems that cities are facing are those problems that were formerly seen as nation problems. And cities are both curses and blessings. On the one hand, they contribute to sustainability in important ways, provide overwhelming majority of GDP, and actually per capita have a lower carbon footprint than rural areas. But on the other hand, they're associated with crime, health problems, social conflicts, and traffic issues. And so these problems are now the key issues in terms of how cities are trying to foster innovation to try and alleviate these problems. And the opportunity lies within these problems for cities to use them as catalysts for innovations. And I'll be speaking roughly today about how cities within the UK have worked on these problems with both private organisations and academic institutes to guide innovation in the right channels to be able to benefit citizens of cities. So how can cities foster innovation? How is the UK encouraging innovation? With support from central departments like the UK Business, Environment and Industrial Strategy Department, the UK has set up incubators and accelerators to push innovation, picking key themes across different cities relevant to those cities and problems in those cities. City councils and municipalities are setting up, in partnership with private sector organisations and academic institutes, vehicles to foster innovation and to provide a test bed for businesses and students to test innovative solutions to the problems that cities are facing. The UK Business, Environment and Industrial Strategy Department is the key sponsor to the UK Research and Innovation Funding Agency, which is funding over £6 billion worth of innovation across the UK. And its funding arm, Innovate UK, is actually funding many of the projects that I'll be speaking about today. First one, the landing in Manchester. This is based at the Media City, the new hub at the landing, and it will give the UK businesses, startups and tech innovators access to 5G, Internet of Things and high-speed fiber to test new innovation and products. This is the first time within a city in the UK that a test bed with such high caliber technology is available for students, startups, SMEs, and large businesses to come in and test innovation before having to invest large amounts of money into developing actual products. The landing is a joint collaboration between Salford City Council and the University of Manchester, along with many private sector organisations. The Edinburgh Centre for Carbon Innovation, through a partnership with EIT's Climate Kick, Europe's largest public-private partnership for action on climate change. They give entrepreneurs funding, coaching, support to develop successful business models, and have so far supported 35 businesses who have between them raised over £1 million in investment and won over 50 awards globally for their work in climate change. The Data Lab in Scotland. The Data Lab in Scotland is working across many cities in Scotland, including Aberdeen, Edinburgh and Glasgow. The Data Lab enables industry, public sector and world-class university researchers to innovate and develop new data science capabilities in a collaborative environment. It has supported many projects to improve both tourism and local council services. Serendip is a Birmingham innovation incubator. The Serendip Smart City Incubator provides market access and expertise for digital startups through close partnerships with major organizations. So this is the City Council bringing in major corporations, multinational corporations, to come and work with both students and startups in helping them access opportunities both across the UK and globally. The Transport of West Midlands Department is a major stakeholder in the project and allows its transport network as a testbed for companies or startups working within urban mobility. And the last one, Digital Health Accelerator. The Accelerator aims to speed up the adoption of technology across London's NHS network. It works with between 20 to 30 high potential startups through workshops, training, meeting the expert sessions, and one-to-one clinics, allowing a number of learning opportunities to startups in the healthcare sector.
What kind of investment are we talking about here?
So the UK Research Innovation Funding Agency is funding up to £6 billion worth of science and innovation funding across the year. And this is split across a number of different strands. One key one is Future Cities. And so we have the Catapult Network, which is helping startups in the Future Cities context. The Connected Places Catapult allows a place for startups to work within the Future Cities network and partners them with local councils. And so the level of funding is quite substantive. A few examples in terms of how cities are using these vehicles for innovation to improve their services. So Nottingham has a number of great initiatives that are taking place and has built up a strong roster of smart projects, particularly within the energy and transport services. It is now starting to bring together these projects within a broader, more coordinated smart city strategy. The city still owns and controls a significant portfolio of its assets and services and is well placed to look at interconnected issues around transport, energy, housing, and health. The key point within this is that Nottingham City Council still owns a number of its assets. And why that's key, the district has developed one of the most expansive heating networks across the UK, has been providing heat and hot water for 3 decades now, and is managed by an independent energy services company which is entirely owned by the Nottingham City Council. This company has, because it's owned by the City Council, has become a great testbed for innovation, and recently has developed a waste management startup that uses its waste recycling facilities to be able to burn waste collected across the city to convert that into steam, and the steam is then converted into medium hot water, which is supplied by its own distribution system across the entire city. The City Council has then partnered with Nottingham Trent University to launch Project Scene, which is funded by Innovate UK, the innovation company or the funding agency I mentioned previously. Through Project Scene, the collaboration between the university, researchers, students, and City Council, they've been able to develop a business model that can be applied not only within Nottingham, but can be expanded out to other cities across the UK and internationally on how they develop their heating and energy network. The next example is Leicester. And Leicester, again, is a fantastic example on how City Council has worked with universities and the incredible intelligence and knowledge within universities on how to improve its services to citizens. The City Council has launched a knowledge transfer partnership with De Montfort University to look at embedding low-carbon building design and innovation into the city. And in terms of tangible results, it has resulted in several new schools being built across the city that are 11% larger in terms of area, but use 30% less energy than what was done previously. They partnered up with a private sector company called Dynamite Light, which provides a platform for schools to be able to monitor their energy consumption. And this is linked back into a data feed to the City Council, which can monitor all the schools together in order to understand energy and water consumption across the city. And this platform allows the council to be able to react timely to any sort of spikes in consumption which may have been caused by a leakage or another problem. Then we have Cornwall. Cornwall on the south coast of the UK is doing groundbreaking research and has launched a project called Smart Line, which is helping homes in Cornwall become more energy efficient. They use a network of sensors placed along the coastline to monitor temperature, wind movements, and air currents. And researchers then analyze the data to determine how to design systems better in order for more efficient energy consumption. The Smart Line initiative uses an interdisciplinary team of researchers to innovate and improve homes across 5 major themes. And lastly, my favorite within the UK, Bristol. Bristol was one of the first smart cities in the UK and is one of the leading cities in terms of the level of innovation that is present in the city and the collaboration across the city. Bristol is Open is one of the first initiatives they launched and is a collaboration between the University of Bristol and the City Council. And they've heavily invested into its network of the Bristol City's network infrastructure and has now become one of the best network test beds in the country. There's a strong fiber network in the ground, a wireless HETNet and a radio frequency mesh network which uses the city's lampposts. The technology allows companies of all sizes to use the network for different technologies and it provides a real world environment rather than just relying on a lab or a simulation sort of environment. And Bristol has only recently, as of I believe last month, published its Smart City Strategy, which is a development of the Bristolers Open project and initiative, and they are running a number of other initiatives around big data, smart mobility, and citizen engagement, and is one of the key, like I said, projects within the UK, and is one that many cities are visiting constantly to come and share knowledge and to learn from. And so finally, I'd just like to state that a true smart city can only be understood as a combination of technology and society. The first step in implementing this understanding is to understand that cities are not only the sole task of the city administration, but are a joint initiative and project that needs to be conducted with the local business community, the local population, and academic institutes. Only then can cities become successful incubators of innovation. I've purposely left out London from this presentation because London is a unique city doing incredible work in smart cities, but is one that isn't very relevant to many cities across the world. And I believe there's many other projects across the UK that deserve a bit of publicity and limelight, and hence why I spoke about those. And there are many others. If you were to Google any one of the projects I've mentioned and cities I mentioned, they're doing multiple projects and are becoming real hotbeds of innovation within the UK. Thank you.
Javad, before we applaud for you, I'd like you to comment on the relationship between the municipality, the university, because all 4 examples you gave, you cited the university working together with the municipality. Can you give us some more insight as to how this relationship was started? Who kicked it off? Did the initiative come from the municipality, or did it come from the university or an external agency? And how crowded is the network? Is it just the university and the municipality doing all these projects, or does it have more extended startups and network of other NGOs and so on?
Okay, I think originally the initiative was probably taken by the universities, but was heavily supported by central government. So the Department of Business, Environment and Industrial Strategy that I mentioned, the Innovate UK funding agency that they are supporting, in a number of its funding allocations actually requires academic institutes to be a part of the application process. So helping channel that incredible network of academics within universities and channeling them into cities to be able to work with city officials to work on innovation and helping solve problems. The Catapult Network, which was launched by the UK government, again, is an incredible agency and a conduit between the two. So it's bringing together the public sector and the city councils and municipalities with both private sector and universities. The catapults have a number of live projects, both within the UK and across the world, where they're taking academics and city officials and bringing them together on the same sort of page and helping them discuss city solutions. They have active projects in Malaysia and in Brazil, alongside the UK. And going back to your question, I think one of the biggest catalysts to this relationship was the fact that UK government were encouraging collaboration and opening funding to those collaborations. So there's funding available for startups and SMEs and also city councils separately. But I think the relationship was encouraged, that any applications coming through with collaboration or consortiums, which included all three, so public, private, and the academic, those sort of applications were supported more heavily and were allocated larger amounts of money to be able to deliver projects.
Well, thank you for that. We will probably have you answer other questions. Lütfen teşekkür edelim.
We would like to thank to our speaker.
Aslı Hanım, ben sizi daha evvel tanıttım. Boğaziçi Üniversitesi İnovasyon Merkezi. Oradan mı
I introduced you, Ms. Aslı. Would you like to use the microphone in front of you or the one at the rostrum? So the maximum time that is given to you is 15 minutes. The microphone is off, I'm sorry. It's still off. Hello everyone. Sorry for being late, I'm so sorry. It took quite a lot of time to come from Bosphorus University to here because you can come across many things in the traffic congestion. So basically what we're discussing is that it's all related with the culture of innovation. When you look at the approach and the definition of innovation, there's quite a lot of change in the world. In the beginning of 2000s, when you look at the definition of innovation, people used to refer to the methodology or the products. But today, when we speak of innovation, we're referring to the technological novelties and adaptation process and the ability to manage this adaptation process. This is how we this is how we define innovation. So it's not only about developing the innovative technologies or your ability to adapt the innovative technologies, but it is also referring to the fact that as an entity, as a person, or as a society, you need to get involved into this process, and you need to have your abilities to be involved in this process. Of course, these are very important for the individuals who are taking risks because they have different viewpoints compared to what we have in our mind. Well, actually, we know that innovation is carried away with dystopia. So this is how people are like. So we have the need to keep a peaceful environment. But if we're not happy with something, we want to change it for the purpose of making it better. So, well, speaking of innovation, this is what innovation can do for us. And this is one of the most important tools in today's life because it's based on three main concepts. The first one is that you have your imagination and your abilities with which you can realize your dreams, and you have limitless imagination. And we might be in need of certain things and technologies which we are not aware of, and the door which will open towards these technologies will be opened by this ecosystem to be created. And thirdly, of course, until today, all the entities that we have coexisted together are invited to assume different roles. So speaking of ecosystem of innovation, this is what I'm going to be presenting today. So this is what we have come up with together with the joint work developed with the stakeholders, and we have realized in a workshop. So we have described this ecosystem together with Marmara Municipalities Union, and so you can see different elements in this ecosystem, including the citizens. When you look at the definition of ecosystem, in the social sciences, we have social sciences, biology, and environmental sciences. These are the three pillars. Actually, this is what we like using as a definition. But we are referring to habitat, which means that different creatures are making use of various sources and they are living in this kind of living environment. Actually, in the open innovation environments, this is what we have been doing, because basically in the open innovation areas, the authority itself is opening this pool of innovation, and this information or the knowledge gets mobilized in a very fluid way to increase the added value. So there are several actors who come up front, and this market change or the radical innovation is created by one of the leading entrepreneurs, and they create market dynamics, and many startups emerge. So when you look at the lifetime of startups, they are in need of three things. First of all, in order for them to keep up with the agenda, they need to have enough equipment and knowledge, and they need to have operational capabilities. And when they attain these capabilities, they need to move forward with the mentors who can help them. And thirdly, since it's an interactive and dynamic environment, you need to exist in a convenient ecosystem. While I was listening to the previous speaker, I liked what he was referring to, because all of the cities that he talked about were there to equip themselves with the necessary technologies in order to increase their performances. This is how their strategy was formulated. So beyond our perception, there is a new system beyond our perception, and some concepts come up front: effectiveness, efficiency, sustainability, comprehensiveness, inclusiveness, and participation. So it has multiple dynamics, and for all the partners and for all the actors, it envisages a fluid environment. So what do we do as Bosphorus University, as Boğaziçi University? How do we make sure that this structure or this environment takes place? And what do we do to make sure knowledge travels across the actors? So Bosphorus University has a research and applied research center for technology and innovation strategy and innovation legislation. And we have different stakeholders, and we have Department of Economy, Business Administration department amongst us. So we have a very multidisciplinary structure, and we are also covering the legislation part of innovation as our center. So we are aiming at creating an open innovation ecosystem, and our purpose is to establish a network economy in such a way to make sure that the environment is created for the actors and partners. And despite the fact that we don't have a school for agricultural studies, we know that these innovation efforts are in need of an open innovation platform to cover all the partners, including the agricultural aspect of our efforts. And we get together, we discuss together, and some of the entrepreneurs or the good ideas or the projects might be put in practice. What was the name? Bone Tarım, which means that Bosphorus University Innovative Agricultural Entrepreneurship Platform. This is what it stands for. I'm kindly inviting all of you to participate in our discussions and our meetings. From Great Britain, we have a participation from Prosperity Fund, and we've worked with them. So they were our partners. So our relation with the local administrations is very eminent. As a matter of fact, what lacks in Turkey is that everyone is trying his best effort to do things by himself within the framework of their capabilities, within the framework of this atmosphere. But this intertwined ecosystem is there, and this is where we are facing problems. And we don't have that many funds, as many as you have. So in terms of finance and funds and realization of the projects based on the imagination, so maybe so these can only be ensured thanks to the financial facilities, and this is the challenge that we face. And when you look at the collaboration between academia and industry, this is also one of the areas where we face difficulties in many of the projects. Sometimes we are facing difficulties in convincing the local administrations and the private sector concerning the necessity of these projects. Actually, we are not in need of convincing each other. We need to create a participatory project, and we need to make a proper division of labor and the budget management so that everyone would do his own bit. And what should be the strategic features to come up front? Of course, innovative business models should be selected and formulated properly, and more competitive business models should be realized, and those entrepreneurs should be encouraged. And of course, we have several tools, and one of them is the scale. So actually scaling in terms of the fundamentals of the project, scaling is very important, and it is important to reflect the scale at the level of local administrations, because we cannot say that every single local administration has the same level of capabilities. But with the scalable ecosystem designs, these efforts can be adapted for every local administration or for every actor or for every municipality based on their level, based on their scales. Of course, regulation is another eminent thing that we need to consider. The world is discussing how innovation can be regulated, because it might not be always right to regulate the innovation, because you may not be able to envisage what kind of capabilities will be there in the future. But you need to pay attention to the fact that you have to protect intellectual property rights, and the added value projects should be pronounced properly, and they need to be supported from the legal viewpoint. And this is very important from the perspective of innovation within the entities. And another important subject is that, of course, the policies created should be compatible with these ecosystems. As a matter of fact, the open ecosystems, from the perspective of all the actors who are in relationship with, on horizontal basis, this ecosystem should be attractive for them, and everything is present in Istanbul so that they would be able to be competitive. Istanbul is a very enthusiastic city. According to the researches made until now, those entrepreneurs are not only interested in accessing technology infrastructure or finance, they're also interested in accessing cultural texture. They are affected by cultural texture. They want to have an intellectual environment where they can get along with each other, and this is what makes the academia enthusiastic. So universities give you this, create an intellectual ecosystem, and the only thing that the stakeholders should do to share it is to put the projects in their mind based on their imagination in such a way to draw the roadmap. Of course, multi-level managerial capability is another important thing. Nowadays, the governance should not be conceived within the usual boundaries, but in a simultaneous manner. And you might be managing the relationships at different dimensions, and you might be managing all these relationships. And what do you want to attain as a result of it? What should be the target of your innovation? If you ask this question, I can simply say that this is what I've been emphasizing. You should have a great market share. You should have a competitive set of products and high technology added value, but you should have a humane approach in such a way to feel yourself responsible towards the humanity. And this is how you should be creating innovation. Actually, these are also very important from the perspective of the dynamics of innovation. Of course, the definition of the ethical rules shall also play a very important role in order to disseminate this societal good to the rest of the world. So what should we do to be able to do that? So what should we do? Number one thing that we need to do is to develop our capacity. This is what we need to do at the level of individuals and at the level of entities. As an educator, I can say that, of course, this is what we can do thanks to education in a lifelong manner. So we're living in a world where everybody is different from each other, and we're living in a very dynamic structure and texture. So secondly, the environments that we're in should have atmospheres which are convenient for open innovation. You should reward the new ideas in such a way to create the new environment of discussion, so that the entrepreneurs should multiply their relationship amongst themselves. They would be able to jump from one idea to another. They would convert their ideas into innovations and inventions. And of course, last but not least, all the supportive actors should be attracted to this center of attraction, which happens to be the ecosystem or the city, and you should be able to invite them. I have made use of my time properly, I think. So, distinguished professor, you are working in an applied research center, so conceptually you have a tremendous approach. It is excellent, but when it comes to the example of universities and local administration, what have you done until today with them? For example, in Cornwall and Bristol, we've seen the examples, we've listened to the examples as Javad has kindly explained them to us, and there are some catalysts and there are some outputs as a result of their efforts. So what are your relations with Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality or the districts of Istanbul or in Marmara region? What kind of attempts have you made, and what were the outputs, and what have you learned as a result of your efforts? Of course, we are quite new, but in our university we have EU funded projects, and UNDP is another entity that we're working with in the southeastern Anatolia region. And in Istanbul, our center is working with Marmara Municipalities Union to create smart cities and clustering. We're working in these two fields. Of course, the point of departure is not us. It is always the local administrations, because they might have a project in their mind and they want to realize it and they want to increase their innovation or governance capabilities, and they share the project ideas with us, and we try to find a way to work with them, and we try to find a way how we can create benefits and profits for everyone. And this is what we've been doing. So maybe we used to work in an agriculture focused area until now, but when it comes to the smart cities, when it comes to the legislation, we have some other sets of projects. For example, impact analysis is the thing that we've been doing, and it is the first of its kind. And we are making the economic impact analysis of the laws to be passed in the future. Actually, the local administrations can benefit from it, and ecosystem designs can be created by us for the local administrations, and we can create innovation labs in such a way to show the way for them for clustering purposes. Economic decision making and source utilization can be the other areas where we can provide our support and assistance to them. So we have different systems of working. So if you are interested, please feel free to contact with us. Thank you very much. Superb. Let's give a big round of applause to her all together. Yes. Ersin, may I invite you?
Evet, hepinize hoş geldin diyorum.
I would like to welcome each and every one of you. My name is Ersin. Mr. Oğuz introduced me. I will say just Oz. I won't say Mr. Oz. Sorry about that. So he introduced me. I have a technology background and I'm coming from the business world and I'm into the cross section of technology and cities. I was retired in 2002 and then I established the LifeCo and then two startups came and those are the acceleration programs. Angel effect and mentor effect are for the startups of Turkey. I'm also a founder of those initiatives. Today, we will be talking about cities and their innovation. So, after this brief introduction, if I can do so, I will just proceed. Okay, so here you see a geography. There is the upper part and the lower part. The lower part is shiny. And what is the difference between the north and the south? Well, it is the same land, the same people. Those are just brothers and sisters. But what's the difference? The difference is organization and decision making. One is South Korea, the other one is North Korea. The South Korea is now a leader in the world, and the North Korea is lagging behind. Why? Because of their decisions. So, what I'm trying to say is that our own existence is thanks to our decision making and our organization. First, at the level of parents, decision making takes place, and then at the urban level, because the second component is the neighborhood, the city itself. So, a city plays a major role in the contributions of a person in life, and then comes the state, the capital, etc. So, in a country, if parents, the state, the capital, businessmen, if they are not hand in hand, if they are not on the same path, then you will not be able to shine through. But you will be calm, you won't be able to become rich, but not a big issue. So let's move on. So, what's going on around the globe? So, what's happening? Why are we talking about innovation? Because in the world there are big changes. Like what? Well, the capital barriers are lifted up. You don't need millions of dollars to be able to establish a company. You can create a great value between Ford and Tesla. The difference is there. Ford is a company of millions of dollars, but then Tesla came with a car made of 37 pieces, and now its value is higher than Ford. It is a data from 2015. In 2015 I delivered this speech, but there is not much development in Turkey. That's why I can go on with the same presentation. Well, $156 billion equal companies are there, and they are into innovation, entrepreneurship, and next generation. Then who is losing? The old generation is losing. So where should be the municipalities? Municipalities should be next to the winners. They should be able to invest in them. I studied in Sweden without Oz, and in Sweden municipalities are trying to attract people who would contribute in the city. They offer low tax schemes to them. They invite those people to the neighborhood, because the success of the municipality is the success of its people. And local governments, municipalities should protect those who create the future. Otherwise, you will be stuck in the past. I will skip those slides because Oğuz told me to do so. Well, so I will be talking about why not that is possible in Turkey. We have a living lab organization in Başakşehir, thanks to our former mayor. Mr. Yılmaz is also here. They invited me and they said, we want to be a pioneer in technology. How can you contribute in us? We looked at the world to see different examples, and Sofia Antipolis, we visited it. It is next to Nice, France, a techno city. And Philip came, an old man. He said, I established this. What are you trying to achieve? We said that we would like to get along well with the technology. Okay, he said, what do you want? Well, we said citizens, etc. And then he said, do not deal with techno cities. Just you should create a living lab. And up until then, I didn't know anything about living labs. I asked why, because he said you should do something useful to your citizens as the local government. And then we looked at those living labs in Brussels. There is a living lab in parallel to the European Union, and there were like 280 members. Today it's more than 300. We looked at the details, we liked it. What is a living lab? A living lab is the technology, public sector, universities, the private sector, citizens get together thanks to this platform. It's the platform, and we designed it. And then in Başakşehir, in the district, we got together with the industrialists, and it is not easy to achieve. Why? Because everybody has a different driving force. When it comes to a mayor, and I have different opinions, a mayor is trying to get more votes. And how can this be done? Well, 36% of people vote for health. So as living lab, if you do something for supporting health, you will be getting votes. And then mayors will be owning this. That's why if you establish a living lab, the organizers should be there together with you. You cannot say just I'm an academic and I will do whatever I would like to do. No, in our case, I would like to thank to Mevlüt Uysal, the mayor, because I have talked to many different mayors and politicians, and he is quite different. He has a different perspective. And he used to offer us a framework, and then he used to delegate the whole responsibility to us. So, what are the difficulties in Turkey? In our country, when we look at our people and our politicians, everybody would like to see the result immediately. Then you cannot talk about an innovation or entrepreneurship, because for an entrepreneurship you need like 5 to 8 years. But in Turkey, you cannot find, for example, angel investors. Why? Because I, for example, waited for 8 years. So you should be that excited. You should be having this perspective. So first you should analyze what can work and cannot work here in Turkey. So we came up with this nice building in Başakşehir, and it's quite a nice center. And you can come and visit us. And in, for example, Bahçeşehir, children came and visited us. They, for example, visited with a drone, and a notification system about the city started. Here you see some examples of what has been achieved. Smart waste collection system or smart irrigation system for parks and gardens. So what is the function of the living lab? Well, Javad talked about it. I cannot remember which city it was, but an opportunity to test new technologies. It's something similar. Some kids come and say, well, about irrigation, we have a different technology. What should we do? Then we bought an irrigation system and we tested this system, and it was quite successful. And then from Switzerland, an investor supported this startup. It's a startup now in Switzerland. Waste collection system is still going on in Turkey. Or, for example, somebody invented a bag for vital data collection in healthcare industry, and we offered free of charge checkups to citizens in Başakşehir, and that's something valuable both for the municipality and for our citizens, because free of charge they get a checkup service. That's something really nice. So the technology meets together with citizens, and some come as benefits, or some details are nice to share. Let me share some of those nice stories. For example, we designed together with citizens furniture for green areas in Başakşehir. What sort of a bench, for example, do you want to see, or what sort of a toilet would be appropriate? So those are quite welcoming and nice. And you see some examples. I won't go into details, but if you ask me who gets the most benefit out of this, it is the children of that municipality. Why? Because they get robotics education, they learn something about coding, and instead of just doing some ordinary things, they made use of the artificial intelligence. So it opens their horizons. And within the country, I get also surprised. We work together with primary, secondary schools. Youngsters offer great solutions, and we need to open their horizons. And let me repeat that one of the most important problems is politics is all about short-term decisions in Turkey, but you need more time to get result out of all those efforts. Oz also talked in 1999, maybe for or the second time in the world, I established a Korea World together with the fund of Ericsson. Ericsson was amazed, and ministers came to visit us. They said that was the future. And then I left job in 2002. I got retired, but then they closed that center down. Why? Because there's no profit. It is the same mentality, politicians think there is no vote, and businessmen think there is no profit. But in time, the mentality changes, and they talk about new concepts like inner organization, entrepreneurship, etc. So what could be achieved within municipalities? Well, healthy life initiatives, I talked about them. Around the globe, there are different examples, like 300 in Barcelona, there's an example. Sometimes we visit them, sometimes we are visited by them. Başakşehir is a leader in this sense, because for 3 times in the world, we received participants in Lütfi Kırdar as well. So, citizens get benefits, children get benefits. So if children feel better, then their parents vote for politicians. Children are the most crucial part to attract more votes. And it's all from my part, I guess. No, this device isn't working, but I'm done. I'm already done. I have a quick question, and then we will be applauding you for this crystal clear presentation, the living lab and its benefits. So, for how long have you had this, and how much investment is made by the municipality? I need those data. And on the other hand, with 30, there are like 30 municipalities in Istanbul. Did you contact them because we need those labs in different parts of the city? In 2011, we were invited and we made a tour in 2011 and 12, and then the municipality made an investment in that building. Başakşehir has lots of land, new construction, that's why the municipality has funds, and the municipality made the investment. And I don't know the total cost of this building, but it should be around 5 to 10 million. And Türk Telekom became a sponsor, and they were responsible for the smart house site. And then the total cost would be around, except the building, it should be around $1.5 million. Inside we have 180 researchers capacity. Children can get educated. Is it still there? Yes, it's still there, but it is not something easy to achieve. Funding is the hard part, because lots of municipalities are suffering from limited resources, and this sounds like a fantasy in this world, you know. On the other hand, there is the lack of vision. For example, we have İkitelli district next to us, and they are producing the containers for yogurt. It's so cheap, you know. If they could come up with a better design, they can sell it for 15 instead of 5 TL, but they don't want to do it. They're afraid of it. Other municipalities. Well, we invited the metropolitan municipalities of the whole country, and Tim and İstanbul Metropolitan Municipality Mayor Mr. Kadir Topbaş hosted an event. All those metropolitan municipalities came and listened to us. They said, wow. One of them asked for an appointment, and we said okay. And then we had a meeting with this scientific research program, and he asked, what is the connection with the zoning? I said, no connection. Then there is no sense, he said. And then I talked to the mayor, and he said, it is so difficult to achieve. I don't know how you achieved, but there is no money or there is no intelligence for this, he said. So, thank you very much for this presentation. We really enjoyed that. So, Mr. Mayor, you have listened to those presentations, the incubation. How would that be possible in Tuzla?
Evet, teşekkür ederim. Ben özellikle
Yes, thank you very much. During Arsim's presentation, I learned a lot of lessons from the perspective of the viewpoint of a mayor. So first of all, thank you very much. Actually, I prepared my presentation, but there are advantages and disadvantages of being the last speakers because people's patience might have been exhausted until you come. So I don't want to say many things on top of what's been said because the previous speakers have elaborated the subject thoroughly. Actually, there is an increase of population in the world, and the life of in the cities will be affected by the interactions amongst human beings. So we might see some chaotic environments, but we are in need of proper designs thanks to science and technology, and we need to benefit from the technology in order to increase the living standards. Well, this is the purpose for the mayors to be elected. You need to have proper standards, proper living standards for the cities, and you have official duties and unofficial duties as a mayor. So 70 to 80% of the world population will be living in the cities. That's what the forecasts tell us. So we're in need of smart things, as a matter of fact. So what I want to tell you is that maybe this is quite important. And during the history, we've been referring to the importance of the infrastructure, education, health, safety, security, environment, and energy, etc. So these have always been important in all ages of the history. We have unchanged reasons, needs, requirements that have started with urbanization. Maybe sociologists or anthropologists can explain it better. The development of science can happen thanks to the development of urbanization. So with the urbanization, otherwise you would be starving, science has developed, and with the development of science, from the beginning of the early ages of the history, the science has advanced and technological products have been developed, and we have different maybe needs in different ages, but we have come to a certain extent at which we need to have some priorities. If you have security concerns, it doesn't matter how smart you are. If you're living in an insecure world, it doesn't matter how many technological facilities you would have. So you need to have your priorities cited. So you need to be interested in the entire management of the city. So the person entrusted with the city should have decisions which are properly formulated for the living standards of the city. You need to increase the IQ level of the city, so you need to manage the managerial instruments of the city in such a way to meet the societal needs, and maybe the city might have infrastructural needs or physical needs, and you need to lay down how you are going to handle these challenges. So the last point of urbanization might be different telecommunication facilities. It used to be with the smoke in the past, in the history, but now we have smart devices today. Back in 1958, transistor was invented, so everything is being changed. So integrated circuits have been effectuated, and the world has evolved into a different direction. So there's this Moore's law. So we are making use of processors. So in my junior high school times, this is what I used to have as the PC, but we have ultra-mobile PCs. I think this is so important to say. I'm sorry, says the speaker. I'm sorry, says the speaker. We have supercomputers. So supercomputers are not developed to play games. So the behavioral models, perceptions, shopping inclinations are computed thanks to these systems. So every single move of ours or behavioral models are analyzed. And this is what big data is all about. So willingly or unwillingly, wearable technologies are also there for us. We have smart houses, smart products, smart garments. So I'm skipping my slides very quickly. So we have smart cities. So this is so important to say if I am to elaborate very quickly. So when it comes to the smart cities, we're not only referring to science or the technology brought by the utilization of science. Actually, all the data resources or the access to innovation should be the basis for municipal services, and we need to find out the methods to access information. We need to be able to process the information and data for the better use in the cities. So maybe for the residents of the city, you can detect several smart instruments for the purpose of the collection of information. So British examples have been given, which were very important for us to listen to, and the distinguished professor has kindly elaborated on their center, which was established in Bosphorus University, and they have established the center to concentrate on innovative efforts. But of course, you need to attain information. You need to have an access to data and knowledge. During the entire history, human beings have used their mind for inventions. But your mind, your intellect is in need of information. So the cities are also in need of information and knowledge. And by making use of sensors, you can collect these pieces of information. But in terms of making use of the information, as the professor has kindly referred to, maybe we need to find a way to collect these information. Maybe we are in need of establishing labs or innovation centers. According to the legal definition of my post, we don't have this legal obligation, but you need to improve things for the residents of the city. When it comes to health, for example, this is one of your legal obligations in which you need to make improvements on. So you need to be elected, but if you have targets to be elected in the long run, you can be elected for the second term and for the third term, because in order for you to finish a job, you need to have an incubation process of 2 to 3 years. So as a result, maybe you would be able to bear the fruits, and you need time to bear the fruits of your efforts. So this is why once you access the data, this information, then you can be knowledgeable, as the professor is referred to. There are some people who say that we have those commercial purposes and we want to do this and that, and some of them have approached us, but hopefully we would have this Marmara, we have this initiative at Marmara Municipalities Union, but £6 million have been spent for the British example. So for the residents of Tuzla, I can say that this budget is quite high compared to the budget spent for Tuzla residents. Tuzla is the city where I'm mayor. So during my first term, beginning from my first term, we have concluded collaboration agreements with universities, including Sabancı University. Since the beginning of my post, we have been concluding agreements with universities. So we wanted to establish a great laboratory environment. So we have made 2 researchers on social texture in order to find out the elderly, the widow, or the youngsters, students, etc., or the people with disabilities, etc. So this is laboratory environment. We are telling the academia that please use our facilities in order to find solutions for people, or maybe the applications can be there. And the first mobile application was done in 2011, And we've made a Symbian app. We have created this app for iOS and Android. So we have changed the infrastructure of the municipality. We have established the urban innovation and automation system, and click to talk, click to write. So these are the apps that we have created. Well, and we have looked at the number of users, and we noticed the fact that the members of the society should be involved in this process. Even though you would have you would have tremendous technologies, if the users would not be a part of this process, your efforts would be wasted. And we have seen an example in Sabancı University. They have created this app to check the homeworks of the students. So this is what we have done similarly to what's been done by Sabancı University. So once you have an access to information and data with new applications and new practices, with new startups, we have tried to do things for our city. Maybe I can elaborate on my topics thanks to the questions you would ask. Can I just change this? I cannot change my slides. I cannot move forward. Okay, now I have my slides. May I ask a question? Until they arrange the screen. So we've seen it in the British example, as a matter of fact. So the collaboration with academia is very critical. And they are the catalysts. And the speakers kindly emphasize the catalysts, the role of the catalysts. So the living labs are very critical. So you have made this configuration. So if you consider a city as an incubation facility, where will all these efforts take place? So how is Tuzla's approach towards smart applications? Do you want to produce or generate your own smart ecosystem by yourself? How do you access the smart ecosystem as referred to by the professor? So the politicians are criticized. I am criticizing academicians. I'm not here to take revenge. But when the British example is presented, we see that in the smart city applications, you can see the university stakeholders. So the information and action coexisted. So we cannot think of Aristotle without Alexander the Great. So the information and knowledge is all about academia. So if you don't have stakeholders from academia, you won't be able to make use of technology or disseminate technology. So academia is a sine qua non. So we can invite the universities, but we cannot pressurize them, of course. So the universities should be able to use us, let me put it this way. So, but the universities should be there to make use of their scientific knowledge so that great startup efforts would be exerted and great laboratories can be created with human beings, and this is what people can do with municipalities, metropolitan municipalities, governments, but unfortunately we haven't been contacted with by universities. I'm sorry to say that. The universities do not establish this kind of relationship with municipalities. I'm sorry to say that. So lots of technoparks have been constructed, but these efforts were quite individual, not in a joint manner. So we don't tackle science. We keep talking about technology over and over, but we have lots of shortcomings when it comes to scientific knowledge and information. Without scientific knowledge, we're trying to make use of tremendous technologies, and we are facing the complications of this particular fact. We're expecting the universities to approach us. I would like to say a very important thing. I mean, data collection is also very important. This collected data should be transferred to the data centers. They have to be stored. They have to be processed, and they have to be shared with the citizens in such a way to make them understand what this technology is all about, and the outputs should be shared with stakeholders. I've read something about Ohio. So citizens are involved. So they collect data, they disclose the data to the citizens, and they're trying to find a sociological foundation, or the experts are invited. And they say that we are in need of X, Y, Z data, and we want to create the startup, and we want to produce X, Y, Z. So this is what they're doing. But this is what they have been doing with the inclusion and with this participation of the citizens. And this can only be possible with the involvement of the citizens. But the safety and security of information is very important. Of course, we need to access data, but we need to store it properly in order to facilitate life. But while facilitating the life, we need to make use of different visions to also ensure this safety of the security of data. That's what I've seen in the British example. The citizens' participation and involvement is there, so this is also very important for me. Otherwise, it is not important for you to have a different viewpoint. Maybe you were doing something as X, but you need to have a different viewpoint or a vision from the standpoint of Y or Z, etc., so that I would be able to have a proper roadmap. Let me proceed very quickly to smart city components, etc. Of course, maybe I don't need to talk about these things. So this is what we all need to do when it comes to energy and waste management and health and environment, etc. But maybe economy is also important when it comes to transport and smart environments. So these are the areas which we cannot be active, because these are the jurisdictions of the metropolitan municipalities, and Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality is not lagging behind. They have quite many applications. What we have tried to do, so we have click and type and click and talk, communication center, e-white desk, LED screens, etc. GIS systems, e-signature, digital archiving, etc. So these are the applications, smart applications that we have been trying to do, including PARDUS processing systems. So we used to have cassettes, and then we had discs. So, but today we have cloud and desktop applications. We have infrastructure, up-to-date infrastructure, but we are kindly inviting universities to work with us when it comes to alternative energy resources. We have invested heavily. I'm finishing very quickly. So you asked a question and you use my time. So when you speak of rights, maybe I can say something more on top of what you said. So of course, economic added value is also very eminent for the city to create its own ecosystem. Waste management is very important. Alternative energy sources are also used by vehicles. So these are the systems that we have created. We have created this garbage collection system, and we have made a savings of 40%, and we have calculated the carbon footprint. Unfortunately, we were disappointed by the fact that we are the municipality which consumes the energy the most. Unfortunately, we have quite a big carbon footprint, unfortunately, from amongst the districts, all the other districts of Istanbul. So we have this target of 40% to have a carbon footprint like this. So I think when it comes to 5G, we are trying to find a way as to what we can do with 5G technology. So it's going to take place in 2020 or 2021. We're trying to find a way how we can effectuate 5G applications. So we are exerting our best efforts without academic support, unfortunately. We want to create laboratories for people. So we have digital libraries as well, which are quite active for 5 to 10 years. So they want to ask questions. I'm finishing very quickly. So when it comes to governance and joint decision-making processes, these are very important. We have been concentrating on these issues. We want to make decisions with the involvement of people. When it comes to the local applications, we're trying to find a way to see how we can use blockchain, etc., and the IoT and the augmented reality. So these are the things that we're trying to work on, so that we would also have the participation from Tuzla we would have participation from Tuzla citizens. We have smart cards, thanks to which you can obtain all the municipal services. Lastly, we have implemented lots of applications, but what I know for sure that actually that's what the professors have done. And no matter what you do, I love this proverb. If you show me, I can see. If you tell me, I can hear. If you involve me, I can do. That's what the proverb tells us. So that emphasizes the importance of involvement of people. So officially we need to finish in 5, but we have a break of 30 minutes. Please feel free to leave if you want to. If you want to participate, of course, and if you want to ask your questions to the panelists, maybe we can have 15 minutes time from the break time. Please raise your hand and ask your questions if you want to. The rest is free to leave because we have half an hour break.
Please ask your question briefly in 30 seconds. I would like to first of all clarify something. In the UK, there are those projects, and the most important pillar is the urban councils, the city councils. So within their own dynamism, as Professor Erson suggested, they can come together with different partners. We have strategy departments, but city councils should work really actively, and then you can get together with different actors. So let's make this a question. How can we bring together these actors? City councils are working with municipalities, but they are not that evident.
How these councils work.
What I would say is that we've had a shift in the UK in terms of the understanding of where the responsibility lies for smart city projects. And I think something that maybe an activity that needs to take place within Turkey. City councils are where the responsibility lies. And city councils need to understand the different interests from different stakeholders. So if your academic institutions aren't getting involved, the city councils need to understand why that is. What are the priorities for the academic institutes? In the UK, we've seen that academic institutes want an area where their faculty and students can apply their knowledge. So the city council needs to facilitate and provide that environment for that to happen. For the private sector, there's twofold for private sector. One is to test products. And secondly, in the UK, we have a massive, or a really large skills gap, where private sector organizations don't have the resources to fill the jobs that they have. So bringing together the private sector and the academic institutes is a win-win situation for both sides. But the key in that is that the city councils need to facilitate it. The city council is where the problems are. So the city council needs to allow their geographic areas, their departments, their systems, so the transport networks, the waste recycling networks. They need to open these networks up to the academic institutes and the private sector to test these technologies. And it doesn't have to be on a citywide scale. None of the projects in the UK are citywide. A lot of them are focused on one small area of the city, but it's about testing those technologies in that small area and then trying to scale those out if they are successful. And there's thousands of projects in the UK. One that's caught a lot of interest recently is within Milton Keynes. We have autonomous vehicles doing the last mile of deliveries. If you walk around a certain area in Milton Keynes, you'll see these autonomous vehicles on the pavements or sidewalks doing deliveries to households and businesses. And they work 24/7 or whenever the delivery time that you fix with them is. So you'll see them throughout the day and night. But the idea was that they allocated a small area with less traffic for it to be tested, and the universities involved, the private sector company that's building these vehicles is involved, and the city council is involved. So the responsibility does lie with the city council. The city council needs to identify where the priorities of different stakeholders are, and then try to entice those stakeholders in by working to what their priorities are.
Thank you. Başka sorusu olan
Any other questions? Yes, please. While listening to this answer, well, city councils. In Turkey, city councils have a structure. They can make recommendations. In our country, for example, we have 26 commissions, and in none of them there is a technology firm to become a part of the city council. In healthcare, in education, we have 26 commissions, but not in technology. So we have to restructure the city councils. From the back, at the back row, we have a question. Is there a microphone available? Could you please provide the speaker with a microphone? Yes, please. Hi. I have a question for Mr. Ersin. This is a specific question about smart cities, about resources of municipalities. After listening to your speech, I'm thinking about coming up with a social initiative. So, the customer segment would be municipalities in my case, but about the limited resources of municipalities, now I'm more hesitant. So let me ask you, as a customer segmentation, should I focus on different areas? So should I take into account only final users? How should I proceed? First of all, thank you for asking this question to me. I would like to make a clarification. I didn't criticize our politicians. I just delivered their rights to them, because in the current context, they are doing what they need to do. And as an answer to your question, I don't know how many initiatives there are. There's one thing I say. It shouldn't be a local initiative. It should be a global initiative. Because in Turkey, maybe there is no money, but you can sell it to other parts of the world where there is money. If the idea is good and robust, go global. As a market, you can start with Bulgaria or a more suitable place. The most important thing is to determine a need. Maybe one day Turkey will have money, and then you can sell that idea here in Turkey as well, but don't limit yourself to Turkey only. Yes, please. Is the microphone on? Yes. About terminology, I noticed something in the upcoming Marmara Urban Forum sessions. You say city council. The city council is municipality council. Citizen assembly is what we are trying to say. So because later on we can get a confusion, so please be careful about city councils and citizen assemblies.
about citizen assemblies, what kind of power they have, what kind of engagement and participation they have in UK. Can you say a few sentences on that?
Sure. And by citizens' assemblies, do you mean the elected?
Terminology.
And other actors are gathering to co-govern the city with the municipality, but they are not the city councils.
Usually nominated. They're not elected.
Sure.
That's the election is for city council members, and the others, the citizenship assemblies, they're nominated, volunteered, or they are responsibles of NGOs in that city.
Okay, I'm trying to think what the equivalent would be. It would potentially be housing associations and those types in the UK, I would think. I think in terms of their involvement with smart city projects, I think the model that's most used within the UK is trying to identify all different stakeholders, and these would be one of the stakeholders. The dynamic of how cities are organised in the UK is quite different to what it is in Turkey, and so within the UK, the elected council, which is your city council, the priorities and responsibilities lies with them, and then they then have to engage with all the different stakeholders. And projects to do with, let's say, housing would have to involve the citizen assembly, which would be the housing associations and the tenants associations, and get the feedback from the residents. And it'd be very difficult for the council to move forward without their input and without their authorization to do so. And so there is a lot of citizen engagement. I think this is something that the UK is one of the leaders on, in that the cities and the municipalities and decision makers are constantly engaging with their citizens to ensure that anything that they're doing and delivering is to their requirements and actually delivering to needs. And there are a number of associations that councils use to contact with citizens.
Evet, teşekkürler. Arkadaşlar, yavaş yavaş öyle bir noktaya geleceğiz ki çok az.
There will be less and less people, and then there will not be lots of applause. So let's give a big hand to our panelists first of all. So if you have questions, you can come forward, you can come to the front row, and then you can ask your questions. Thank you.